Welcome to Elite Broker, the podcast showcasing the leading players and stories of success from Australia's broking industry.
Hello and welcome back to Elite Broker. It's your host today, Annie Kane, talking to the big one this week. We're talking to the recently crowned Major Independent Brokerage of the Year. This week, we're talking to their general manager, Darren Little, as he unpacks what it takes to run a major independent brokerage, what the process looks like at the business, and what they've got planned for the future as well. Thanks for joining me, Darren. How are you going?
Fantastic, Annie. Thanks for having me today.
It's great to have you here in the studio here in North Sydney and be able to pick your brain about what it takes to run a major independent brokerage. And I think so many people who listen to this podcast are either brokers who are just starting out or they're other brokers kind of maybe at the few sort of 5 to 7 years in and thinking, how do I grow my business from here? Now, you've done it all. You kind of walked the walk and talked the talk. But for anyone who's not had the pleasure of meeting you, can you give us a bit of background as to how you got into where you are today to begin with? Because you were in lending, I think, first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So look, I'll go right back sort of thing, Annie. I was in high school in regional South Australia and I wanted to get into the bank. I was running working for the local credit union at lunchtime in the library at high school. And then I got an opportunity halfway through year 12 to join a local bank, Bank SA, or State Bank South Australia at the time. I really just love the customer service side of it. I love helping people and I love, numbers and that was my thing. So the opportunity to move to Adelaide as a 16-year-old and start in the bank, that's what I did. 26 years later, I had an amazing career in the bank and St. George over in New South Wales. But probably about 26 of those years, I was involved in lending. So whether it was proprietary lending, mobile lending myself, running the broker channel, that was sort of my space. Loved it then, love it today sort of thing. And, it was a really good opportunity to have some grassroots, banking. I think the training there was outstanding. The people you got to meet was outstanding. And then in 2013, at that stage, Smartmove was our biggest distributor at St. George. Right. And I was working quite closely with the team there at that stage. And the conversation sort of go from, what's next at the bank. And at that stage, St. George was part of the Westpac Group, it was a big employer and probably didn't have that customer focus that genuine customer focus I was really longing for, that I was used to probably back at Bank SA. And David Brell, Simon Orbell and myself sort of got talking and I really liked what they were doing genuinely at Smartmove. They wanted to transition the business from, sort of being brokers into more of a brokerage. And that was sort of where the transition came, Annie. I left the Friday after 26 years and at St. George and started there on the Monday and have loved it ever since.
Wow. So, I mean, I think this is, again, like that feels like that wasn't that long ago. So long-term listeners of the podcast, but also I think of the people who've been in the industry for a long time will probably know you from St. George.
Absolutely.
That's where you kind of spent a long bulk of your career and, of course, working very closely with the broker channel at that time as well.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. You go to events now and, especially obviously we're part of the AFG network and well known within the AFG network, but you go to other, events such as, the ABAs and you're chatting to people and you introduce yourself and they remember your name from sort of 10, 15 years ago when I used to do all the pricing. Anyone that wanted a discount at St. George, it used to come to my desk eventually and maybe it wasn't me doing it, but my name used to be on everything. So it's quite funny that, I was talking recently to a tech business and they were talking about in 2010 I helped them with allowing them to see clients remotely. I signed off on it sort of thing. And you think now seeing clients remotely, that's just what we do. Yeah. But back in 2010, it was a very face-to-face space. And I remember working through with this, he's a tech startup now, but he was a brokerage at that time. And it's just amazing the journey that we've been on in the industry.
Yeah. So when you joined Smartmove, what was it that you were brought in to do?
So very much the title was general manager and very much was general manager. So it was sort of the day-to-day operations. I sort of, my role, I like to call myself the janitor because it's about cleaning up everything sort of thing. And, it was to come into the team. David hadn't been writing for a little while and he was sort of all roads led to his office sort of thing. So the opportunity to come into the business, be part of it and leverage things like the bank relationships. Leverage, what we'd already started. The boys had already started offshoring at that stage, and we built out over the sort of 2014, 2015. We sort of moved, incorporated a little bit stronger in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. We built our first purpose-built facility in 2015 up there, which we've just moved out and moved into bigger premises now. And it was really just sort of running that day-to-day piece, that scale process, and I'll talk lots about process and scale today. But it was about setting the business up that was sustainable, that it wasn't sort of kind of come back to one person, sort of that one key man risk sort of thing. And we've been able to do that then over the years. And talk about more about the journey as we go.
I think this is also so interesting seeing, obviously like David and Simon having that foresight to be like, we actually need someone to help us grow. And I think a lot of people get into that situation where they take their business to a certain level and they're like, I actually don't have capacity to keep on building this out and to be the HR person and hire and do the marketing and all the things you need to do if you're running a much, much bigger brokerage brand. Can you give us an idea, just for anyone who doesn't know, how many people are in Smartmove and how many loans do you reckon you write a year?
Yeah, even just that comment about David and Simon, the vision, it was back, you can remember 2013, 2014, the brokerages were good loan writers, and that was a brokerage sort of thing. And I really take my hat off to them. David and I talk a lot about, he was custodian for the first 10 years. I was a custodian for the second 10 years, and I'll talk about what we're going to do for the next 10 years in a moment. But it's been very much about growth. We are now at circa 100 in the team, in the lending team, and I will call it the lending division now, and it's a lending division of the Viridian Group, and I'll explain that in a moment. But we're at 100 in the team across 3 countries. So just under 40 brokers in Australia. Pretty much all our team in Australia are revenue writers. And then what we've got is we've got support teams, operational facilities in both Metro Manila and in Kathmandu in Nepal. And that's their roles are pretty much to process and support our team. And they're amazing at it. It's really why we incorporated, not outsourced. It was very much about controlling the culture, what we want, and that's been a really big thing. Our aim, last year we did about 2,600 lodgements to the bank. Ooh. So, and that's been pretty consistent. This year we're on track. I think we'll do about just over 3,000 home loan applications. Wow. With the Smartmove brand. In addition to that, we do process for another amazing business that we've got an equity position in, and we process for them. So there's another, probably over 1,000 applications, probably closer to 1,500 applications as well. So
there's a busy teams in Manila and Kathmandu doing all of that. Yeah, wow, about 4,000 loans a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and look, Annie, it comes back to what we looked at. From day one at Smartmove, it's about, doing the right thing for our client, making sure that we can be efficient, and everything when we're building, we talk about scale. There's no point in building a process for one broker and having a different one for the next door. So what we say is, if we're going to build a process, what does it look like for 100 brokers? What does it look like for 200 brokers? And then that way we can get that repeatable process, and also the clients get the similar client experience. It doesn't matter if they go to Annie or they go to Darren. Yes, you get that personality piece, but what you're actually really doing is getting that Smartmove experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So really building, when you came in, kind of building that process, seeing what it looks like, getting them up to scale. And you mentioned there about Viridian Group. So 2023, I think it was. Absolutely. We actually ran the story on The Advisor. You might have seen it. So Viridian acquired Smartmove. So Viridian, as most people will probably know, massive financial services group. How did that kind of come about? What did that look like?
Oh, I think it's like a lot of good things. Glenn Coulter, one of their joint CEOs, myself, we met at a function, at a networking function. It was actually at a Harvard Business School event. And it really went from talking about 2 very aligned businesses, very client-centric, wanting to look at innovation, making sure, we wanted to grow, scale, all had very similar philosophies. And it became very apparent very quickly that we could create a referral relationship, and that would have been good. We could have really created some opportunities. But if we were genuinely about doing something different, and that whole diversified financial services business that we are now, that was really thought, hey, it's 1 + 1 = probably 5. That was sort of the concept of it. I know a lot of people too, talk about that. We're now 2 years into that journey. We are the lending service of the group. And, we've got brokers pretty much around Australia now working. There's over 30 offices nationally of the Viridian Group. Now, you're right, we've got a big advice business. We've also got an investment manufacturing solution business. So there's quite a lot that make up who we are. And we feel that, we are a salaried employee business. So everyone in the business, whether it be brokers, planners, we are all salaried employees with the common goal of actually doing something really quite amazing for our clients. And I'm really confident about where we are today. So that's been the last 2 years. And look, once again, I think you sort of look at 10 years earlier when David brought me on to come out of the bank and sort of be the general manager at the time. And I sort of did that for a few years. Then I became CEO for sort of 6 or 7 years. We were probably one of the first bigger brokerages to actually then go and join, merge in, with a larger financial group. And so definitely innovation in relation to looking at what's next. We're really always on that. On the lookout for that.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because I think if you have been in the industry for a while, you might remember back around sort of 2018, 2019, a lot of the banks owned brokerages or aggregators and they started offloading those. And we kind of saw this real change in the industry where we had a lot more independent brokerages kind of going out on their own, far less vertical integration. And I think in the last maybe 2-3 years since COVID, we've seen it kind of go back to the other way where we're seeing, again, these much bigger financial service groups kind of taking on brokerages and wanting to have that full service offering. So what does that look like nowadays for you guys? Because you still have the Smartmove brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's part of Viridian Group. Do you sort of say, hey, if you need a financial planner, you can talk to my mate Bob over here and he'll help you? Or
Yeah, look, it's really making sure we understand what our clients' needs. And I think if you look at advice, it's whether it be finance, like lending advice or financial advice sort of thing, we're actually all about that trusted relationships with the client. We're really fortunate now that we've got about 16,000 trusted clients across our group. So whether it be through the lending space, through the advice space or through our manufacturing space. But it is about working together and actually making sure absolutely. We cross-refer and make sure. But what we're trying to do is actually not have it as a referral, Annie. It's just part of our extension of our offering.
Okay.
It's not about, can you please go down the road to speak to Johnny? We do sit in the same offices. We've had a really long and proud history in the lower North Shore of Sydney with our offices and that sort of thing. We've actually closed those. And we've actually merged our team. So we all sit together. And it's amazing the power of great advice end to end. And when, I see our team members, our broker team members come out and they've just had a joint meeting with one of the planners or something like that. Mortgage brokers and financial planners are really blessed with the information they get from clients. They're sometimes hearing things before family are hearing about it. And that, so actually, when you can actually work in unison together to actually make a real difference to a client's life, it's pretty special. So that's really where the excitement is. And yeah, absolutely. We help a lot of our clients out across the group. Year one, just I know numbers are always important to talk in these type of things. 12% of our settlements came from the group last year. So, for year one, top of first full year, we were really pleased with that. And so we'll do more of that. And as we integrate more, as we can, get in front of more of our clients and actually offer a full service offering. And that's sort of where we feel really that superpower is in the group, is having that. And, you sort of even rewind right back to when, we were sort of looking at how do we scale Smartmove? How do we sort of go to a national business? How do we use all the infrastructure we've built, all the IP we've built, and actually scale it? And we were looking, do we partner with an accountant? Do we deal with a planner, or do we deal with the real estate group and those sort of things? And while we kept coming back to partnering with an advice business, was that trust. The clients trust their advisor, and it was very aligned with who we've always been at Smartmove, and it was very much that trusted advice. We felt that was where we wanted to be. So the Viridian match, it's been you sort of look at high level, why did we come together? And that's absolutely been ticked off in droves, coming together. It's been really good.
Yeah, good for the business. And you mentioned as well being here in the sort of North Shore area.
Yes.
Obviously, having had the Smartmove offices and now part of sort of moving into the Viridian offices, do you find that like most of your clients are local to where your brokers have been based, or are they kind of everywhere?
Yeah, it's if you sort of look at 10 years ago, we were pretty much a white Caucasian Northern Beaches business, where most of 90+% of our business was on the Northern Beaches.
Pretty much all Brits, yeah.
Lots of your friends.
Yeah.
But what we probably found is in 2018 we moved out to the centre of Sydney. We actually created an office in Rhodes, and that really started that journey of spreading the wings sort of thing. We've got a really strong base still obviously on the North Shore, but gosh, it's a lot more balanced now. We've got a strong presence in Melbourne down with the team down there. Even we've had a couple of our brokers that have gone through our training academy. They've moved up to the Gold Coast. That's been really successful. We've got a broker in Perth now starting out. So we're very we go where the people are. In saying that, just under 40% of our appointments are still face-to-face, so we still do quite a few face-to-face meetings, and that relationship's a pretty strong connection.
I think that's really interesting as well, looking at how you manage then a company that is across different states. And this, again, I think calls for why they need kind of a GM/CEO position, because if you're a broker and you're loan writing, being able to actually have the time to go and visit not only Australia, but go to Nepal and go to Manila and talk to your team, people over there. I know you've done that recently. You popped over to, was it Nepal you went to recently?
Look, we're always sort of there's always someone travelling across the group. And, I look at a way we've had to structure the business now, and it's allowed the structure for growth. So Manila, that was a really big project sort of thing, getting that to the level we got that to. And, I've done 53 trips to Manila over the last few years. So that was pretty regular for a long time.
Are you now a lifetime platinum
member of Qantas or something like that? No, Qantas are my friends though. But we've got a head of mortgage broker services now, Sue. Sue's sort of been running that for the last few years, does an amazing job. She takes the lead on both of the operation centres, not just for the lending business, but now for the group. We built a new group facility for the Viridian Group in the Philippines last year. So that's now got planning support team members, all sorts of support areas up there. So that she runs all that. But one of the key things with education and training for those team members is we take our brokers up each quarter. So we take 4 or 5 brokers up. They spend time in the offices, and it's not just up there for a week of entertainment. It is very much about a week of getting up there and training and sitting side by side, running sessions, educating. It's super important. We want those team members to feel as connected to our clients as our brokers do, because it's we're not going to be successful if the broker's a superstar, but if our support's not, or vice versa. So everyone's got to be working together, and that sort of that connectability between broker and operations has been really important. That's why we invest every quarter by having people up there. Yeah.
When you think about then sort of running this brokerage and kind of like having the capacity to do it, I mean, do you kind of think, well, firstly, actually, I should ask, did you ever think about becoming a broker yourself?
No, no. So look, I in the early 90s, I was a mobile lender, as a lot of probably brokers are today, sort of thing. And I made a decision in about 1993. So yes, I was very young at that stage. And I made the decision. I moved from being a really, I was a pretty solid mobile lender. I actually went into credit, and it was always my aspiration to actually work in a business and on the business rather than be the business sort of thing. And that was why I sort of moved really early from sort of being the writer to actually then I went into a leadership role in the bank. And even one of our team members today that works for Smartmove, Chris Hill, he worked for me back in Adelaide and did an amazing job there and does an amazing job. He's one of our regional managers now, sort of thing. And very much about running the business, and that's probably I feel my strength.
Yeah. So if you do think about, what you've kind of learned from running Smartmove, I mean, as I said, one of the biggest brokerages and a major independent brokerage of the year 2025 in Australia. Yeah. So if you think about what it takes to run it, I mean, a lot of brokers, I think, they kind of get to a point, let's say it's a 7-year itch, where they're like, do I continue building this as a business? Do I just focus on being a loan writer? And they kind of almost have to make a choice of being like, where do I take it from here? Do I continue to grow? Do I bring in someone to run the ops, or do I do that myself, or do I kind of stay where I am? Would you have any advice for like how you kind of make that decision, like what it takes to be a leader and what it takes to kind of have your own business?
Yeah, it's a challenging one, isn't it? Because you've generally that broker has got into the business because they're probably passionate about some form of the business. They've been successful and they've got it to a stage they've got 1 or 2 or 3 brokers and some support staff and those sort of things. But then where does that passion go? Like, are they passionate to run a business or are they passionate to help clients? And that's probably one of the things I'd really encourage people to look at is where their passion is. Because if you're passionate about it, you're not really working, are you? You're just doing, just enjoying what you do. Then, so for me, it's about, if you're really passionate about that client service and getting in front of clients and leading by example and, mentoring your team and those sort of things, bring someone in to run the business, run the operational piece. Generally, if you're really good at the front end sales side, probably things like compliance or banking, paying the payroll is probably not your thing, and it's probably going to draw your energy out. So bring experts in to do that. Outsource it, whatever you want to do that. But really, you're going to grow, 10% at your high performing end is going to be far better than if you're trying to spend, time doing your accounting payroll. So that's probably the piece. And the other one is probably just whether we've always been a salaried employee model, which is a bigger investment up front and those sort of things, but probably just having a look at, those systems, processes, and what do you actually want to be end game. Things like, if you're going down the employee route, making sure employment agreements are really solid. Just all of that structural side of it. That's where you need the support. And for me, it's probably go with the passion to start with and build around it sort of thing. So, because if you don't really enjoy running a business or that's not where you want to be, it's probably going to be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, a lot of hard work for little sort of benefit.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break here, Darren. When we come back, I'd like to talk to you about the actual operational side. So
Perfect.
What does your process look like that you've kind of locked down? Who does what in the team? And what sort of tools and tech you use to help make your lives easier? So we'll get into that just after this message.
Fantastic. Thanks, Annie.
So when it comes to actually running a major brokerage, you said you've got staff about 100 now. That's a lot of people to think about. That's a lot of management as well. Let me sort of walk through the Smart Move process, because I'm curious to sort of see who does what. So let's say I'm a client.
Yep.
I want to get an investment property here in the beautiful Northern Beaches.
Perfect.
Do I walk into an office? Do I call you up? Who am I talking to first, and what's the process from there?
Yeah, look, that was probably where we are pretty consistent sort of thing. So, look, if you want to come into an office, you want to do it online, look, we cover all those needs. And as I said, about 40% of our clients are still coming into, when I say into face-to-face, whether the broker goes out to the client. But our broker we're trying to set our brokers up for success by making sure they can be in front of the client listening as much as possible sort of thing. So that's a really key piece. A lot of that procedural stuff, whether it be apply online, we use Broker Engine, those sort of things, a lot of that is handled in our operations centres. So our brokers will do that upfront meeting. What we try to do though is we're a bit of a Kaizen business, so we do lots of and historically it's get it up front, get it right sort of thing. So in a perfect world, if our clients can complete our online fact finds, provide supporting documentation prior to a face-to-face, we'll have an initial conversation, say over the phone, get a bit of a feel that, Annie, you want to buy a place on the beaches, great, and a bit of a context, but then the fact find is really the critical thing. We're really hot on making sure we have the full information prior to giving advice.
Yeah.
So many times, you'll say, I earn 100,000, but then when you get the pay slip in, it's 20,000's a bonus, 10,000's a car allowance, so you're actually earning 70. So it changes the dynamic really quickly. And setting expectations with clients is a really big thing, because if on that 100,000 you can borrow X, but now it's a very different
Having
thing.
to backtrack, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a great experience. So one of the things that we really work hard on is getting it up front. Now, depending on, we've got some team members that have one-on-one support that will help them sort of prepare for meetings. We've got other team members that will do that themselves sort of thing. All that support is in Nepal, and they're sort of one-on-one support. So the only one-on-one support we actually have in the business. The rest I'll explain is a queue-based system. Then our brokers will sit there, sit face-to-face, and actually really it's listening, understanding what those clients' needs are, then putting a recommendation together. All the applications then get built, all the great forms, all our banks, all that sort of stuff gets done in our operations team. So just with the time differences between Australia, Philippines and Nepal, it plays into our favour that we can push into the evening for support. Just sending, what we find is a lot of our clients don't mind getting some documents for signing at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, maybe after the kids go on to bed and those sort of things. So the team in Nepal can keep files moving at that sort of thing. So that works well. So our brokers give the recommendation, our operations team prepare it, lodge it, track it, those type of things. Then we've also got a team. Compliance is a really big part of our business. That we make sure we QA a lot of all our files, make sure the bid, all those sort of things are covered. We regularly compliance check file. Then we've got a post-settlement team, which is probably our biggest lead generator. That team constantly review and provide value to our clients. So whether it be pricing reviews, whether it be, here, Annie, here's an updated electronic valuation for your property. That type of thing is just always there. Property reports. Yeah. That's just that ongoing service. But once again, all of that's built out of the Philippines on Nepal. So whatever we do in the Philippines is replicated into Nepal.
How often does that post-settlement team kind of get in contact with clients? Like, are they sort of doing that annually, 6 monthly? Is it ad hoc?
Yeah, look, we very much we've gone to an ad hoc style model because depending on which banks they are with, like things move, maybe they don't pass rates on, and then that creates a conversation. And some banks are really amazing how we can just constantly keep making sure they've got really good offerings. So it isn't we do it every year. Sometimes it might be twice a year we talk to you, but then that next month might be 14 or 15 months sort of thing. But there's always something happening.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And you said that's your sort of biggest lead generator. So I'm assuming that people kind of see, my value of my property's gone up. Maybe I want to think about pulling out some equity or something like that. Yeah,
it's a really big one because it's about we're not someone that goes out and asks for business sort of thing. But last year we had just over 1,100 client referred home loans.
Wow.
And our aim is to turn one client into two. And that's by providing amazing service. And that's where that consistency and that type of thing really comes into it. So that's a big part of it. If they go to the barbecue and you're saying at the barbecue, I haven't heard from my broker. And one of our clients will say, our broker has reached out proactively and saved us $10 a week.
Yeah.
That's where we'll get referrals from those clients to say, hey, I've got a mate at the barbecue, he'd like to save $10 a week type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a really big, it's a pretty simplistic way of just doing the right thing by our clients, and it's just evolved over the years.
Do you ask for referrals and reviews?
No. Don't ask for referrals, but we let our clients know how we generate our business, and that's through word of mouth. And absolutely, we're very big on Google reviews. I think at the moment we've got about 1,100, 1,200 5-star reviews. It's part of our process.
Yeah.
As I said, everything, we have a process. So it's an automatic thing. As soon as a formal approval or an unconditional approval come through, a client gets an email from me asking about the experience. That experience is on Google. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And when you mentioned about using Broker Engine, for example,
yes.
So actually AFG now mostly owns it.
They do, 100%, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, acquired it a couple of years ago, maybe last year. And it's a big sort of CRM platform, broker built for brokers. What do you did you tailor that to your own process? Do you kind of do an off the shelf? Like, what does that actually look like for you?
We've been on it for probably 18 months, 2 years ago, and it was a massive piece. For us, as I said, because we are so process-driven, Annie, we wanted to make sure it felt Smartmove, it worked for Smartmove. We're really fortunate. We've got a process improvement team, and they worked on it for probably 10 months before we unleashed it to the brokers.
Wow.
We run our own URL. We run our own, every video that's in there for client or broker, it's all custom to us. We do skin it for business partners. So, for example, ours looks purple. We've got other businesses that maybe look green and those sort of things. So it looks and feels them. But what it all comes back into then coming back into our process. And as I said, that's a queue-based process. So if at scale, one-on-one relationships in processing can work amazingly well, but you go off process. All of a sudden, you're doing things for me that I'm not doing for someone else. And then if you're sick, we're in a problem. So what we do is we run a queue base, and there's obviously priorities, where things need to be processed and that, but that's our model, but it all sort of comes in and that allows us to then process at scale. So if, for example, we have 20 home loans go up for the day, that's okay. If we've got 5 people away sick today, it's okay, sort of thing. We're not having to stress on that. Johnny's away today on sick leave, Billy's home loans can't get processed.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that consistency and experience for the client is really key.
Yeah. So do you, when you sort of talk about the queue system as well, do you kind of have to, if there's like a super fast settlement, is it sort of flagged somewhere to
absolutely.
be like,
it's just
urgent?
Yeah, absolutely. So we prioritise things. We use a Kanban type visual management. We like visual management.
Yeah.
We use a lot of visual management for running the team and running the business and running our client flows sort of thing. So, yeah, absolutely. You know, if you've got a settlement that's drop dead, you know, or what we want to also making sure that if we push it through quickly, we're also going to a bank that is going to be able to support. You know, there's no point in going through really quickly if it's urgent, then go to someone that's got an 8-day turnaround time sort of thing. So one of the big things we run our operations centre very much like a bank. You know, that we triage files, make sure that the broker, we won't start an application unless the broker has got everything they need to do. We're very clear on a stop and start, so who does what. So it's there should be no wriggle room that the broker will say, to the ops team, you should have done that, or vice versa. We triage it. That means the broker's job's done. Now it's up to the operations to do the next step.
Yeah. Now, it obviously sounds like process is super important to Smartmove and to the success of the brokerage. But you mentioned earlier about that kind of training that you do as well. Is that training brokers into your process, or is that training brokers how to be brokers? Like, what does that actually look like? Yeah.
So look, in 2020, I'm thinking back now. It's been a while, Annie. We were sort of looking at the marketplace in Sydney, and the mortgage broking, you only had to look at Seek, or there was so many people looking and fishing in the same pool. We'd had a pretty good track record of bringing new to industry brokers in, and generally they were new to industry. I think in our history we've only actually employed 2 brokers.
Wow.
So it's generally new to industry. So we built out a broker training academy, which was a 26-week purpose-built Smart Move training program. Everything that we'd had ad hocly in the business, we actually condensed. And one of our senior brokers at the time, Cameron Wiles, he took on heading up that and has done an amazing job. We've done around 20 brokers through that academy. It's a fully paid 26 weeks of training. You get a lot of exposure, in particular around, we call it the Smart Move way. You know, how do we deal with customers? How do we interact with customers? They get to, a new broker comes into our business and has the ability to sit with some of the best brokers in the industry and also see a lot of files. They also spend some time in our operations centre in the Philippines, understanding what gets done for them and how the interaction works. But it's been a very big part of that next stage of development. We've got, ex-NRL refs that work for us, Coca-Cola salespeople, all sorts of backgrounds. So we actually really look at those behaviours, they're going to suit versus, we're looking for a bank credit manager type of thing. We do exactly the same in the Philippines and Nepal. So all of our training for our team in Nepal, we've only been in Nepal 2 years, but all the training has come out of the Philippines. So it's replicated, so if we're going to do a video for training, let's do a video for training, and then that's then consistent throughout the organisation.
Yeah, wow. So when you talk about this did you say it was 26 weeks?
Training? 26 weeks.
Are they working at the same time, or is that literally just every single day they're kind of on this program?
Definitely not classroom time, gosh. So So generally what they have is they'll have a classroom style day, once a week. They've still got to do things like Cert 4 diplomas, all that sort of bank accreditations. It doesn't get any quicker or easier. But what a lot of the time is actually spending side by side. And, it's involved. We're really fortunate as a business. A lot of our business partners come in, they get to see a lot of the banks and that sort of thing. But a lot of the time it's actually sitting in on, picking up the phone, calling clients, sitting in client meetings, following up, having conversations. That's very much the 26 weeks. And really proud over the last couple of years since we've joined the Viridian Group is that now we've actually expanded that program from being just a Sydney-based program. So now we've had people through WA, in Victoria. So we can still execute our approach because those team members in the 26 weeks generally get 3 to 4 placements. So they'll go and sit with Annie, the broker, and work with you for the week. Yeah. Now, what we track everything. So we track, how many phone calls they're involved in, how many meetings. Are they looking at self-employed files? Are they doing SMSF files? Are they doing first home buyers? So they get we try to, by the end of the 26 weeks, give them really good exposure in what a broker is. We only really get one shot in front of a client. And to have someone sort of go through 26 weeks, then they go out into one of our teams. So our structure, we've got teams within a team. So you got this sort of Smart Move brand, but then we've got team leaders, and then under those team leaders, they got their team. And so those team leaders take on academy placements. And then at the end of the 26 weeks, those team members may go into those team leaders' teams and work together. So it's really, we want that mentoring to be really close, and it is because we want to keep that consistency in that experience.
Yeah. Did you find that, because I think a lot of brokers when they first start, particularly new to industry ones, and particularly if they go out on their own, are kind of like, I've done my Certified Mind diploma, I've got a mentor, but I only see them once a month. Like, I don't really know how to do this now.
No.
So a lot of them will know the theory and they'll know what they're meant to be looking for in reading in financials, but actually doing that sort of client relationship stuff is quite difficult. Do you think it's possible to nowadays kind of be a broker and not have someone around you to teach you the ropes?
I'm pretty hard and fast on this. I think, Annie, it's those soft skills that you really learn from being with people. And, since COVID, we've had a requirement for our team to be in the office 3 days a week. Yes, productivity at home is amazing, ticks all the boxes. But it's that collaboration and team that we've got so many new brokers coming through. We've got, even in the advice space, you've got lots of new PYE advisors coming through and that. But being around experienced team members, like, I always say to Simon Orbill, his best value he brings to the business is when he's sitting in the middle of the office and he's dialing and he's talking to clients the way Simon does. Because all of a sudden, it's not just Simon speaking to that client, it's actually 10 newer team members that haven't had that experience that they're actually picking up and learning from it. That's really powerful. So I'm really hot on the whole working together, seeing someone once a month. From a client point of view, you might get there. But are you going to get an amazing experience? And that's probably what, we want to create amazing experience for our clients. So, pretty hot on that.
Yeah. And I haven't actually asked yet, but I probably should have done. You mentioned some of the things that the brokers are seeing, so like SMSF and Resi. So do you offer all types of lending? Do you do all Resi and commercial? Is it just Resi?
Yeah, look, we absolutely do. We generally will refer our asset off to a business partner who had 10 plus year relationship. We get home loans from them, and so that works really well. But commercial, our capability is quite strong in that space. In particular, coming into the Viridian Group, we've picked up a couple of really strong commercial bankers out of that. So that's good, in particular in agri. But yeah, we've always done that. Look, if you look back at the history of Smartmove, 5 to 10% of our volumes every year are pretty consistent in commercial sort of thing. So it's not massive. Once again, it's not. We find you're doing business and activity breeds activity and like refers like. So if all of a sudden we're doing a heap of sports people or we're doing a heap of judges, that seems to be what we're doing sort of thing. But then as their needs evolve, all of a sudden they might want to buy a SMS in the commercial or something like that. All of a sudden we're off doing that. So,
so kind of going where the client goes rather than chasing it.
Yeah.
We'll take a quick break here, but when we come back, I'd like to talk about what's next.
Hey,
cool. Where do you go from here? So we'll get into that just after this message. Already, a huge broking business for you at Smartmove, and looking at where to next. I mean, what else can you do? Do you have any plans to kind of continue growing? Do you want to kind of bed down where you are now, seeing obviously you're part of the Viridian Group? What is, let's say, the next few months, so FY26, what are your kind of core targets?
We're really pretty clear at the moment. So we've got really strong aspirations to grow, and that growth is going to come in two formats. One, through organic growth, and we've got a lot of things that we're doing across the group to do so, but also through M&A. We're bringing in a PE firm at the moment that's will settle in the hopefully next 2 months sort of thing, which is quite exciting. They're a global financial service player that we really are pretty upbeat about. They're a really strong, want to get in and add value and help sort of thing. And so that's exciting for us. For us, I look at what we've done in the past, investing in brokerages. That's worked exceptionally well, using our IP, probably coming back to, brokerages that are really good at certain things, but they don't want to do other things. So we've been able to sort of go in and sort of fix, like whether it be compliance, operations, process, whatever there. So sort of if I look at the next sort of period, organic growth is huge, but that M&A component, we're really looking for groups that we can bring into the business, be part of this next journey, this next phase of our journey, and pretty upbeat about it. We want to get in front of, have the right people. Still don't want to step away from that cultural alignment. I think that was really important, when we went in with the Viridian Group up front, there was that strong cultural alignment and helped overcome other things. So, we're really upbeat about where we want to go. But, growth is absolutely on the agenda. So,
walk me back just quickly to the private equity thing. So, looking at, is that in terms of investment in the business, or is that in terms of actually providing funds to maybe lend yourself?
Not probably in the funds to lend ourselves. It's certainly something we absolutely would love to explore is, manufacturing. So we're really strong in manufacturing and investment products. We're up for a few awards again this week. So there's lots of that space. So that's sort of probably not on the near horizon, is the manufacturing ourselves in the home loan space. But it's very much around bringing expertise. Whether it be, we need some expertise in tech or HR, whatever it is, all of a sudden this group's got around 150 investments globally, really, some strong players. So hopefully taking some of that global expertise and bringing it locally. And that's, I sort of look at the broker industry as such, we're really on the cusp. There's lots of consolidation going on, whether it be banks, aggregators, brokerages there. We want to be at the forefront of that.
Yeah, awesome. So, that's a big FY26. So what is the longer term vision for Smartmove? Like, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years?
Oh, look, for us, it's very much, being that real specialist lending service of the Viridian Group, contributing really strongly to, our growth profile, but also just making sure doing the right things by clients across Australia. That's a really key piece. I look at what we've built, platform-wise, operation-wise. We're really set for success and growth. And I look at the industry. I think that consolidation is rife, and we've got to do more. We've got to add more value to our clients, and we've got to be easier to do business with. And that's from a broker point of view, from a bank point of view. It's an exciting time, but I think what made us successful last year is probably not going to make us super successful in 5 years' time.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I think, talking about, you've obviously been working in the space for a long time and had a lot of experience both in the broker channel, but also the banking channel, more generally across mortgages. When you think about where the home loan industry is going and where the broking industry is going, so, more than 3/4 of people now using a mortgage broker for their residential needs, according to the MFAA figures. And lots of people sort of saying, is that sustainable? Will that continue to grow, especially with the advent of AI becoming much more mainstream and people turning to online advice? Where do you see the broking industry going from here?
Yeah, where I think the broking, we've got to be more efficient to serve. Just to run businesses, and that we've got to be more cost effective. But I think from a client point of view, you're right, 76% or whatever the number is from MFAA is a huge number. I actually think it's going to grow because we provide choice and trusted choice. Trusted advice, we can certainly use technology to get you there, but I really do believe that face-to-face interaction for a major purchase, I do believe, whether it be literally face-to-face but that advice from a broker, I'm actually really upbeat about. But we've got to be more efficient to serve. And that's where I think, things like AI and enabling our brokers, enabling our client experience is where we have to go.
Yeah. So looking at, just making sure that they're not having to go online themselves because it's too slow to do it through a broker. Yeah,
absolutely. You look at some of the online players now, we get a lot of clients that will go there and then they come to us. They get a solution, they get a transaction, but are they getting a trusted long relationship is probably the question. And for some people, they don't need that, and that's okay. That real vanilla transaction, if it's just a rate or a quick approval. But what we've got to be able to do is in the brokerages is make sure we can compete. And that's where, things like technology does play. That enablement piece of the technology is really critical. You look at, say, the UK market, I think they're over 80%. That's been pretty consistent like that for a long time. I can't see a client having the time to go and do research that we do, and that's, last year we used 42 banks for residential lending.
Wow. 42 lenders.
42 banks. Lenders or banks or funders and that sort of thing. Yeah. So that probably just gives you an example, Annie, that we're looking for banks for really the right solution versus just putting it all, historically we'd go to 2 or 3 banks sort of thing. So we're really looking for choice for customers. That's a fair bit of effort to do that, but it gets at a great outcome. That
brings me to an interesting question as well, because a lot of people would say that mortgages are so commoditized and that they're kind of, cookie cutter. It doesn't matter where you go. But using 42 lenders, that's a lot.
Absolutely.
So what is it that you're sort of looking for? Like, why would you use such a range?
Look, it's a credit policy piece. The variety in credit policy now is huge. There's turnaround times. There's, even just, this bank might use this type of policy for a bonus or something like that. There's just always little niches. Or it might be that, this bank uses electronic documents and they live remotely or something like that. Or they want, there's always little things, and it's about us being educated and being able to educate our clients on the why. Why would you go to a bank that you've never heard of, but it gives the solution? Rate is always going to be important, but if you can't get it settled on time or can't get it approved, there's no point in having an amazing rate sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at then where you think the mortgage market is going, we're about to start the new home guarantee expansion, lots of expectations that house prices might escalate rapidly from here. What do you think the rest of 2025 and into let's say FY26 will look like in terms of mortgage lending this year?
Yeah, I suppose I look at a lot of our leading indicators. As I said, we do a lot of visual management. That's tracking things from proactive phone calls to client meetings to fact finds back, all of those sort of things. And, we're only a couple of months into FY26, but our numbers are up consistently sort of thing. We're 22% up on our fact finds returned, as example, just in 2 months. But it's just that pent-up demand, with pre-approvals and those sort of things. So I actually feel, in particular, maybe not Melbourne as such. I think across Australia there's a few different speeds economies sort of thing. But, in particular Sydney, I think we're going to have a really strong spring. So which is good, And, I think most of the bank, business partners are pretty set for that. You can start to see a few little offers coming out here and there. Everyone's starting to find, where do we want to place ourselves in this space? Because things like that first home buyer space, that's going to be hot. And, you only have to be on social media. You don't have to go looking too far, and all of a sudden there's something about it there. So there's a lot of interest. I look at our inquiry in particular at that space has definitely ramped up, especially with the increases in the caps.
Yeah.
That's been significant. As I said, traditionally we paid on that lower North Shore and a $900,000 cap.
Won't get you anything.
Didn't get you didn't get you too much sort of thing. So all of a sudden now that's been opened up. It's a bit more realistic nationally. So we're pretty upbeat about where things are at the moment.
So let's sort of wrap this up with a bow if we can, Darren,
Okay,
and maybe talk about kind of advice for brokers who are looking at building their business, for having done it yourself over the years and kind of, having had big experience running a major brokerage. What advice would you give someone looking to grow their business?
Probably the big one for me is, I know a lot of people sort of focus on how do you generate business and all those sort of things, but to me, it's having amazing team that are aligned together and work together as a team, and having that really strong, consistent process that you can scale. There's no point in having 5 amazing brokers if they're doing 5 different things, and that, to me, it's about getting that unified approach. That's the really big one. If you can get people pushing together, and whether it be support staff, everyone's just sort of following that one way. It's super important if you're going to want to scale and actually move past, so many brokerages, there are 3 or 4 brokers, they might be writing a couple of $100 million of settled business, but they're all doing their own thing. They're all running their own sort of trust accounts. They're all running their own banking. They're all paying their support people separately. You're not really a brokerage together. You've got to be a business, come in together. And you might go backwards before you go forward. But you've got to believe in what you're doing. And I really truly believe if you sort of work together, have great people around you and have that strong process, I reckon you've got a really good opportunity.
Yeah. And of course, the other big thing for a lot of brokers is looking after themselves. It's a lot of work running a business. What do you do to unwind and de-stress yourself?
Oh, gosh, Annie, that's probably asking a bad question on this one. Now, look, for me, I've got a Harley, love riding it, love doing Ks. And last couple of years in particular, do a lot of Ks, but also I'm an Adelaide boy. I've got a new place back on the beach there. So I try to break my months up pretty consistently. So I do a 6-week block. So I do 4 weeks in Sydney or travelling, and then a couple of weeks in Adelaide. That's my 6-week rotation. My couple of weeks in Adelaide is probably that time. That's probably the dangerous time because I think too much and I sort of come up with ideas, but you need that time when you need to sort of step away a little bit from the day-to-day, and that's sort of my time in Adelaide. Historically, it's always been on the bike. I'd go for a ride for the day, and you might go ride wherever, a couple of 100 Ks, might be 1,000 Ks in the day, but that's my thinking time. And that's super, super important to be able to get that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Darren Little, GM of Smartmove-Professional Mortgage Advisors, thank you so much for coming in and joining us and talking about what it takes to lead Australia's major independent brokerage of the year 2025.
Fantastic. Thanks, Annie.
If you've got any questions for me or for Darren, then do feel free to reach out. You can reach me at editor@theadvisor.com.au and Darren Little at Smartmove, of course, part of Viridian Group, to find out more about them. Or, of course, check out all the news stories on theadvisor.com.au about what Smartmove's been up to. If you haven't already subscribed to this podcast network, then do so. Make sure you never miss an episode. They're all here on the Advisor Podcast Network, the Elite Broker, New Broker, In Focus, What's Making Headlines, and Women in Finance podcasts. We'll catch you next time for another episode. We hope you have a good week.